Thank you all for being here today to help celebrate my father's life. It means a lot to me and to the rest of my family, and I know my father would have appreciated it. He was a fairly social person, and he always enjoyed a good celebration. I've been telling people for as long as I can remember that my father was one of the nicest men I know. And I promise you, I'm not alone in that opinion. If you ever met him, you would know what I mean. A friend recently told me that in Yiddish, my father would be described as a mensch. And I grew up in Brooklyn, and I know what mensch means, and I can't think of a better word in English to describe my father. As a son, I felt nothing less than unconditional love from my father because he didn't judge. When we were little, we had a football. I don't know where it came from, and my brother and I didn't seem to know what to do with it. So my sister Elizabeth, who was the youngest, stuck it in her toy baby carriage and pushed it around. And Elizabeth went on to become the athlete in the family. I was born to arts and crafts, drawing, painting, ceramics, stained glass, silk screen, anything creative that I could do with my hands. My father supported my interests every step of the way, and I went on to have a career in graphic design. I worked most of my career in magazines, and Dad used to read every magazine I worked on. I remember my father sitting on the beach reading a copy of YM magazine. YM was a magazine for teenage girls. It had stories like 25 most embarrassing moments and 100 ways to do your hair. But Dad read every word and looked at every layout. That's how devoted he was. My father loved us for who we were and let us be us. More than 20 years ago, I had a partner, Brian, who was very sick. Dad had already retired at the time, and my work was very demanding. I did what I could, but Dad took Brian to several doctor's appointments and sat with him in the hospital. I would go to the hospital straight from work and find them laughing and telling silly jokes, or sometimes just sitting together, reading peacefully, not feeling the need to say anything. I don't know if I could have gotten through that period in my life without my father and his unconditional love. If you get a chance upstairs at the reception, please take a look at a beautiful slideshow my sister put together. You'll see a photo of my brother holding a football, giving the lie to the story I told earlier, and a photo of my father wearing a YM cap. And perhaps we should give a prize to whoever spots those photos first, but I don't know what it might be, so sorry. And speaking of my sister, it's awfully handy to have a 24/7, 365 on-call doctor in the family. So thank you for that, Elizabeth. And it doesn't hurt to have a few lawyers in the family either. And thank you to 2 generations of cousins for flying in from the West Coast. Someone expressed surprise that my cousin Anne was heading to New York for her uncle's memorial service. Anne replied, "You never met my Uncle Charlie." I was very fortunate to have been born into this family. I'm very glad that this service is being held at Grace Church. My brother, sister, and I all went to nursery school and Sunday school here. My family attended services here pretty regularly. Even if we often arrived on the late side, we always managed to make it here in time for coffee hour. And we were among the last to leave. My sister was married in this church, right down there. And I was confirmed in this church. Although we took confirmation classes together, my brother Michael chose not to be confirmed. I find that odd because, in my eyes, Michael went on to become the saint of our family for all that he's done to help care for my parents. They live in grace. Some of my happiest recent memories are of escorting my father to a few services here at Grace Church. My father didn't seem to want to leave my mother's side too often over the last few years, but he wanted to attend those services. My family has always been very close. A friend once described my family as a wolf pack. So it was never easy to get my father alone. So I cherish those rare one-on-one times with my father, and over the last few years, many of those times have been right here in this church. Usually over there, my father liked to sit close because his hearing wasn't that great towards the end. And I've gotten such nice notes from my friends. One friend suggested that my father had bodhisattva energy. I had to look that up. So I'll let you look it up yourself, but I do have to agree with my friend. The same friend mentioned my father's sly but never cruel wit and keen intelligence unfettered by arrogance. Many people have mentioned my father's smile. I don't know why. I think my father was a good-looking guy with a nice smile, but I think it's more because his smile was so constant and sincere, never fake. We have a lot of photos of my dad smiling on the beach. The beach is my happy place, but based on those photos, it might have been one of my father's happy places too. But in every photo we have of my father, and photos taken all over the world, wherever my father is, he seems to have a big grin on his face. It seemed everywhere my father went was his happy place, and he made every place he went a happy place for others. Someone said recently that my father seemed to have a blessed life. I'm not sure about that. My father had plenty of good fortune, but my family has faced challenges also. I'm afraid I provided, albeit unintentionally, more than my fair share of those challenges. But my father seemed to subscribe to the adage that it's not about the cards you're dealt, but how you play the hand, and when life gives you lemons, make lemonades. So I don't know that my father had a blessed life, but he might have seen his life as blessed. To me, my father and his attitude toward life were the blessings. Another friend mentioned, based on the announcement in the Times, that my father seemed to lead a charmed, accomplished, robust life. That comment brought to mind Fred O'Hara's epitaph, "Grace to be born and live as variously as possible." I think my father did live a robust, various life, and I think he did find it grace to be born, to just be alive in the moment, every moment of life. It makes it seem all the more appropriate that we are celebrating my father's life here at Grace Church. I think my father embodied the word grace. I think the world would be a better place if more people in power had my father's outlook on life and his sense of grace. And I don't remember my father complaining, ever. He really, ever. But what many people might see as hardships, my father seemed to just accept as part of life. I complain a lot, and I'm okay with that. I feel like it's my prerogative as a New Yorker. I'm not my father, and I would never claim to be. But in the time I have left on this earth, I hope to try to follow my father's wonderful example of what a man can be.